Hello race fans and welcome to the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada, live here on Apex Racing TV and the iRacing Esports Network. I'm Peter Mackay and I'm joined this evening with Brian Delp in the commentary books, and these wonderful images and overlays will be brought to you by Marco Barbanera over in Rome. Today we are at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park for round 1 of 4 of this Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada. Brian, last time we couldn't have been in a more different environment when we commentated together with Wayland Modifieds at Phoenix. How are you feeling for this one?
I'm very excited for this one to be here at Canadian Tire Motorsport and just to see these cars going around, and so much on the line for these guys. These are the top 30 drivers in Canada in these cars, and so it's just going to be an amazing time to see all of them fighting it out for those top prizes.
Yes, you mentioned the prizes. There are some fantastic prizes up for grabs for these drivers. Now, just to fill in for our viewers, so the 30 drivers in this field have had to qualify for the privilege of taking part in this event. So 30 qualifying events across 4 circuits. And what was really interesting is that the time at each circuit was added together, so you couldn't afford to have a weak track. So you are really, as you say, looking at the 30 fastest sim racers anywhere in Canada. We're also joined by a couple of very interesting wild cards. We have in the number 7 car, we have a pro race car driver, Daniel Morad, who back in 2017 won the prestigious Rolex 24 at Daytona, and of course, quite fittingly, did so at the wheel of a Porsche 911 GT3. Now, for the series champion here will get the trip of a lifetime to Porsche Paradise, where they will be welcomed for dinner and an overnight stay, and a Porsche track experience or ice driving, whichever they choose. They will also get a 911 Bluetooth speaker, a Porsche Motorsport jacket and bag, and 100 iRacing credits. I have to say, that is quite a swag to bag, isn't it, Brian?
Yeah, that's a great prize. We all sim racers, we want that chance to get into a real car and be at a track. We want that opportunity to try that out. And the winner of this series gets that opportunity. That is such a huge prize and deal for these guys. And you know that they're all going to be fighting as hard as they can to get that once-in-a-lifetime experience.
Now, Brian, we've been following quite closely. We've both been very excited in getting onto the session before our drivers go live for this qualifying session, which we're just gone 3 minutes into right now. And in the practice, the closeness of the competition was just incredible. We had the majority of the field covered by about half a second. Of course, at this Canadian Tire Motorsports Park layout, should see quite a big draft train emerging, particularly along the Mario Andretti straightaway.
Yeah, I think the way they're doing qualifying is probably the best way for these cars. You could send them out there and have them do single runs, but having them out there in this racing environment, getting this draft, that's going to show you who truly understands this track, these cars, who knows how to get in that draft the best, and who can really put it on the line. So I think this is definitely the best way for these Porsches to be going around, and it's going to be a lot of fun to see where everyone shakes out.
It really will, and we're already seeing a few cars, I'm sure you'll be noticing on the stream here, a few cars spinning off and hitting each other already, but this isn't probably the norm for iRacing. Most of the time you will see solo qualifying sessions, but this is super exciting to see this because, as you rightly say, the draft is going to be so important, and I think perhaps we might see a few mind games in qualifying because, of course, if you have one of your rivals sticking behind you, you're kind of dragging them along with you, aren't you?
Yeah, that's the thing. When you see it in real life all the time, I think of especially with the MotoGPs, and a lot of times when they're out there, you'll see people trying to get that toe, and iRacing, typically you don't see that, like you mentioned. Typically you see the solo qualifying. A car will go out on their own. You have so long to just put in so many laps. Whereas here, this is open qualifying. All these cars are out on that track at that same time. You're trying to get behind someone, get that draft, and put down a very fast lap.
So looking at, you'll see all of our details here on the right-hand side of your screen, telling you the winds, the date in sim, and the temperature as well. So we've got 21 degrees centigrade, so a nice balmy ambient temperature, and 24 degrees of track temperature. So it should be nice and ideal conditions for the Michelin tyres on these Porsche Cayman 718 GT4s. Now, while we're on the subject of this car, we'll tell you a little bit about it. So this is a car which Porsche, you could go out and buy one of these in the real world and take it GT4 racing all over the planet. It runs a very typical Porsche setup, a 3.8 litre flat 6-cylinder boxer engine, but interestingly mounted in the middle, which has been the kind of ethos of the little Cayman since it came out. Well, God, goodness me, over 15 years ago now. But it's not packing, it's not short in punch. 425 brake horsepower in this machine, but it does have lots of handy driver aids like ABS, traction control, and electronic stability control to help keep it on track. But with this level of field, perhaps they might not need them, Brian.
Yeah, it's gonna come down to a lot of the driver and how you feel about it. Now, we are in qualifying, so I do want to mention the times right now. Sitting in first place right now, we have William Levesque with a best of 123.43. Second is Corey Whiteman with a 123.68. Brandon Hawken in third with a 123.74. Mike Dam with a 123.8 in fourth, and Chris K. Jackson is sitting fifth with a 1.2383. So the guys are really fast, and they're all right near each other, because if you continue to go down there, at least 9 of the top 10 are in the 123s, and a few more just breaking in there. So these guys are all quick. They're all right there on times, and it's going to be such a battle with these things as we see someone lose it and go off track there.
That was a very good demonstration of a very typical Sector 1 accident there here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. It's interesting you're talking about Corey Whiteman there sitting in second position. He's running the number 9 car in the classic Pfaff Porsche livery. Of course, Pfaff are one of the biggest names in the Porsche world in Canada, because of course Pfaff run a number 9 911 GT3R in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship as well, and I believe that Corey Whiteman actually works as a technician for that race team.
Yeah, we have a lot of, like you mentioned, some good names in here. Another one that we mentioned before was Craig Anderson, the goalie from the Ottawa Senators, is here running in the 41 car, as you see him off track there. But that's a huge name here, even for fans that may not follow too closely with some of the racing series, who may follow other sports. That's a name that a lot of people know, because he's been everywhere in NHL. He's fought for his career for so long, and he's just such a great goalie now with the Ottawa Senators.
Yeah, it's fantastic to see, athletes from other elite sports joining us here at the very highest level of sim racing. And I don't know about you, Brian, I just think that athletes at that level, they just have that winning attitude, don't they? They just do what they need to do. They're not these types of personality. They do not accept finishing last, do they?
No, they want to win. Even if you come into this with no experience, these guys all have that competitive feeling in them where they want to win it at all means cost. They will do anything to win. And it's really cool to see how many other sports athletes are getting involved in racing, whether it's NASCAR, whether it's road racing, or any type of series. They're kind of all getting involved and in love with it, and it's just such a cool thing to see, because it's bringing the sports world kind of together more. And then with this time off, people getting involved in sim racing, things like that, it's just brought such a spotlight to iRacing, and so it's so cool to see these guys on here.
Yeah, I think iRacing in particular really is taking it to another level entirely, Brian. It's just how these cars, these 718 GT4 MR Club Sports, they are laser scanned to the finest details so that they look and behave just like the real thing. And of course, with the advances in technology for steering wheels, pedals, etc., and of course the computer hardware as well, that you can, in your own home, for less than you might expect, you can develop an incredibly realistic setup. And of course, it's been brought even more into focus during the last couple of months with the lockdown, etc. But I think this love of esports and racing is here to stay. And of course, here in motorsport, we're very, very lucky that it's one of very few sports in the world that can be so closely replicated at home, which has definitely been to the advantage during this lockdown period that we've experienced so far in 2020. Now, I want to talk a little bit about why for Porsche, Motorsport is, or as it used to be known, Motorsport, now known as Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, the track that we're on today. Porsche and Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, there is such a good connection between the two. Of course, Porsche's motorsport history needs no introduction, but actually they've had a couple of their more significant events at this track. Back in 2007, the Penske organisation used to run a car called the Porsche RS Spider, which is one of the most revered cars ever in sports car racing. And in fact, Timo Bernhard and Roman Duman actually beat the LMP1 Audi R10 TDI of Alan McNish and Ronaldo Capello. And in fact, that year in the American Le Mans Series, won 8 victories outright, even though they weren't even in the top class. It was an extraordinary vehicle, that RS Spider.
Yeah, you can see that all the time where certain cars just kind of come out of nowhere and surprise people. You can talk about many throughout history, and it's just such a cool thing when that happens. And Porsches have always been great everywhere, so to see them here with this series now and sponsoring a ride for one of these drivers at a track day, that's just such a big deal, and sim racers love that, and we can't thank Porsche enough for doing this for these Canadian drivers.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think Porsche, they've really been one of the leading brands in supporting esports and understanding its relevance. And, you know, Porsche has been a company that centers around motorsport pretty much since day one and has built the reputation of its brand on durability, but also high performance. And that comes down to its record as goodness me, Daniel Morad giving a good example there of the toughness of the 718 GT4 Club Sport. Now, I nearly called it the Cayman there, but actually I believe that they have dropped the Cayman part of the name to replace it to 718 when this new model came in a couple of years ago. And actually that 718, that actually comes from a car that they ran in the early 1960s. And in fact, the first of Porsche's 18 Sebring 12-hour victories came in the original 718 RS Spider. We've got 13 minutes down of this qualifying session, so we are really looking at coming into the business end of this session. Now, really, really close. The top 5 covered by just 0.24 seconds, but Levesque, he is 0.2 quicker than anyone, and if you look at how close it is, he is really the standout driver so far today here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park.
Yeah, and as you said, they're so close together in that best lap. We now have 16 cars in the 1, 2, 3s. So it's just, and after that, they're still really close with 1 minute and 24 second .06 for the next 2 after that. So these guys are all very, very quick. They're all within a second for most of them. So while some might be a little slower on the back end, anything can happen during these races, and it's very easy to make up positions. We've seen first lap crashes a lot. We've seen guys just pushing it so hard trying to make up a position and make a mistake and take someone out. So no matter where you are in this field, you have a chance, and especially with how close this field is.
You're absolutely right, Brian. It's going to be so close. I mean, anyone who's within half a second a lap, they, in theory, could draft along behind the leader. So that gives you an idea. Even someone like Warkup or Ellis or Romagnolo, they're actually close enough on outright pace to sit and draft behind the leader. So I don't know about you. I think staying out of trouble in the first couple of laps is going to be crucial. Of course, we only have 4 rounds in this series, so a crash early on and a no score would really be disastrous.
Yeah, with 4 races in this series, you can't make a mistake. You need consistency throughout the series, and that's who's really going to end up winning this championship. You could win a race, but then you could crash out the next one and finish last while someone else just runs consistent, and they're going to end up with those points that you wish you had. So it's not going to come down to who's going to finish the highest. It's going to come down to consistency because, like I said, you can push and push and push, pull out that win. The next two races crash out. So you need to just, throughout the series, be patient, take your time, and settle in. And patience is something sim racers have struggled with for a long time.
Yes, we all. It's funny how that when you always say to yourself when you're sitting in your rig, I'm sure it's just the same as sitting in a real race car. You're going, okay, come on, calm down. It's a long day. It's a long race, and then of course the green flag drops and it all goes out the window, doesn't it? You just morph into Ayrton Senna all of a sudden.
Yeah, you
or
want
so you
to,
think.
you want that lead. You want to be the highest you can get at all times. So when these guys are sitting there, they're saying to themselves, I'm going to be patient. I'm going to take my time. We're going to go nice and easy on the first lap. And then someone pushes wide or they wreck in front of you and you just try to shoot that gap just because. And you just want that lead so bad, or you want that next position. So while it's easy to say you're going to be patient, it's very hard to actually put it into application.
So a couple of quick laps there just at the end of qualifying of Gobel in the number 12, but it's going to be the 144 of William Levesque taking the pole position in this first round of the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada, live here on Apex Racing TV and the iRacing Esports Network. Also, if you're watching on the Porsche Motorsport Canada Facebook page, hello, thank you for your company. We really do appreciate it. We're almost ready to go. We have a 45-minute race, so quite a long race, Brian. And of course, if a driver does get into trouble, they do have the option of the very handy iRacing Fast Repair. So what that means is that the drivers can get their way back onto pit road either under their own power or via a tow. And they basically get an instant repair. So an instant repair, but why don't you take us down our lead runners, Brian?
So starting in the first position, we have William Levesque in the 144 with a 123.428. Second is Mike Dam with a following behind him. And third is Brody Gobble. Fourth is Brandon Hawken. Fifth, Corey Whiteman. Sixth, Tony Klusterman. Seventh, Nathan Bartley. Eighth is Richard Hibbs. Ninth is Chris Jackson. 10th, Mac Cornick. 11th is Jake Thompson. 12th, Evan Lean. In 13th, we have Juliano Romagnulio. 14th is Stephen Workup. 15th, Alex Ellis. 16th, Ian Gagnon Renaud. 17th, Giovanni Romano. 18th, Oliver Bedard. 19th, James Walker. 20th, Alex Da Silva. 21st, Jordan Dion Gilbert. 22nd is James David. 23rd, Chris Trickett. 24th is Eric Bourdois. In 25th, we have Andrew Waring. 26th is Daniel Morad. 27th is Brian Carey. 28th, Sam Fellows. 29th, Dmitry Malkov. 30th is Craig Anderson. 31st, Christopher Bisson. 32nd is Jacob Warble. 33rd is Yuri Terashin. 34th is Marc-Andre Seguin. 35th is Jack Dumage. 36th is Nelson Mason.
So we mentioned our wildcard drivers. So of our drivers, we have 4 wildcards here, and of course the guys from the Straight Pipe YouTube channel they're in the number 34 and the number 69 car. And we mentioned MotoGP earlier, Brian. They're running 2 very significant MotoGP numbers: the 34 of Kevin Schwantz and the 69 of the late great Nicky Hayden. As our, very fittingly, our Porsche 911 safety car here on iRacing takes our field away for 1 pace lap. Now, this is quite good because sometimes here on iRacing they actually shorten the pace lap and the drivers have to get straight on with it. But this will give the drivers the opportunity to get a bit of heat in the brakes and the tyres as well.
Yeah, as we said, the first lap is very crucial in these cars. You want to have your car feeling the best that it can. Especially because, like we said, we've seen so many times where a guy will go into the first turn, they'll just miss it, and the guy behind will try to shoot that gap, and we have that huge pileup that we see so often. So especially here, you want to be very comfortable. You want to know what you're doing because there's a lot on the line in this series, and so these guys want to have every opportunity they can to get the best finish.
Yep, they certainly do, as we see. And of course, the run, the green flag run, when the pace car pulls in, it's really, really tight and actually very, very narrow coming down the front straight. So yeah, it's gonna require really good discipline from these drivers. And you know, we actually were talking about this before the show. How many familiar names we see here? Back on here on Apex Racing TV a couple of weeks ago, we had the Canadian E-Racing Challenge, and a number of these drivers like Matt Corrins, Andrew Waring, and such took part in that event. So hopefully they'll not, and Bedard as well, Olivier Bedard also. So we're going to see quite a lot of people there. Now, we mentioned straight pipes. There they are. There's our guys, number 34 and number 69. Very, very jazzy liveries on those cars. So thanks to them for coming along as well. So it's those two guys, the 41 of Anderson and the number 7 of Daniel Morad, who is a professional race car driver in the real world, and as we said, a Rolex 24 at Daytona champion. So he will be the owner of a Rolex Daytona watch, the lucky guy. So we're just coming around the final part of the S's. The Porsche 911 safety car will pull off, and it will be Levesque to pace the field as we head for 45 minutes of racing here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park. And we are green, green, green after these lights go out. Yeah, we are go here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. Brilliant start from the 144 of Levesque as they pile into turn 1 and head down to turn 2 of Clayton. Looks like they've all got through relatively cleanly, Brian.
Yeah, that's a great start so far, and especially for Levesque being able to get clear on the start, that's huge that he wasn't able to have to battle going into that first turn.
Yeah, for the guys behind him, they've got to be very, very smart here. It's very tempting if you're in 4th or 3rd position to try and dive bomb the car in front of you, but really, with the pace that Levesque had in qualifying, 2/10 quicker than the nearest driver, they really need to work together to be able to stay in touch with him. And this draft, as we come out of Moss Corner, named after the late great Sir Stirling Moss, this is really, really important as they go along the Mario Andretti straightaway, as we see a really good 3 wide along the straightaway here. This is like a NASCAR race, Brian.
Yeah, they're drafting and pushing each other on these long straights, and for some it's working out very well. Others are losing positions, not quite able to have that draft in front of them. As we see, most of them are kind of in a straight line here using that draft. A few not so much, pushing it a little wide there as we see a great battle happening.
Yeah, very, very close. Now, but coming in there, that very, very fast right-hander into the S's. When we were looking in we were commentating in the Canadian E-Racing Challenge. It was funny, one of the drivers on the podium, and forgive me, I forget his name now, and he went round the outside in a GT3 car. As we see one of our number 15 driver, that's Richard Hibbs, he's in the wall. He might have to come in and get his fast repair. Oh, what a pity for him running into the wall. But yes, that around the outside move had been pretty tricky. Let's get a replay of that. So as we're heading down to turn 1, this is a very, very tricky corner, one that requires quite a lot of commitment there. Oh, and he gets a help. He gets a help. I couldn't quite tell who that was that gave him a bump there, but oh, he will be furious behind the wheel of that 15 car. And he's actually converted his GT4 to touring spec by taking the big wing off.
Yeah, as you saw, he gave plenty of room on that bottom there. The car underneath just missed the apex and slid up, just tapping him. And it doesn't take much on iRacing to really just a little touch can send your car flying off track. And that's all it took. And once you hit that grass, you are on ice. So it's best to keep the car on the track when possible. At that point, it wasn't his fault, but he just had nowhere to go.
So we're riding on board with the number 99 of Brandon Hawken, one of our fastest drivers in free practice, and he's right there behind Goebel and Levesque, I think, is the next man along, as Dam sets the fastest lap of the race with a 1 minute 23.830. So this pace is quick up front.
Yeah, they're all right there with one another. They're keeping pace. Levesque hasn't quite been able to pull away to a very large gap. He's got almost a half a second gap there, but most of them guys are sticking together. You see they're in a pack of 4 right there, very close. And I could see as this thing goes on, we're going to see a lot of position changes, and it's going to come down to a lot of times who can save some tires.
That's the number 10 of Chris Trickett there. Just getting off, coming down into Moss corner. Now, does he get a help from Daniel Morad in the number 7 car? Let's have a look. Oh, yes, he certainly does. And look at the damage on the front of Daniel Morad's car. Oh, dear me. That is, he will be furious at the wheel of that car. And God, that's got a sting when you get helped off the track by a real world racing driver. Shows that they don't show any mercy, these real world racing drivers.
No, they want to win just as badly as these sim racers, and so they're going to push it as hard as they absolutely can.
Now, oh, that's the 9 of Corey Whiteman. The 9 of Corey Whiteman in the Pfaff Porsche. He has ended up in the wall there, and look, he's turned his Cayman 718 GT4 into touring specification as well by taking the wing off. Now, he will really want to try and get into pit lane here if he can. Is he going to? Yes, he can. So he can come in and get his fast repair where he's just got to stop in his pit box and crack on from there.
Yeah, like we said, it's going to be very hard to rebound from that. We talked about needing to get consistent finishes. Any little... Oh, and we see a car get a little love tap and go around. That's the 333 there.
Now, that was the 5 of Giuliano Romagnuolo giving a little bit of a, as you say, a little bit of a love tap. I tell you what, Brian, you can tell there's big prizes on offer because these drivers are showing absolutely no mercy whatsoever.
No, they are pushing it. They want this prize, and you can tell they're giving no room. But that might have been a little bit of a chop down. I couldn't quite tell also where just misjudge it a little bit.
Yeah, that was Corey Whiteman there getting a big help from the 333 of Nathan Bartley. So it's all happening behind. But look at this. Levesque is not getting away from the 99 of Hawken and the 12 of Goebel. And the 93 of Dam is not far away there as well. So it's luckily they're not making us a liar, Brian. We said the draft was going to be important. Well, that is keeping this pack in touch with Levesque.
Yeah, he's not been able to pull away as they've just been able to stay in his draft, and you'll see him at times try to break that draft, but it doesn't really work. The guys behind are just so quick, and they're just keeping up pretty easily. So I think this is going to be a great show for the full 45 minutes, and I think at the end of this thing, we're going to have a great finish.
It is, yeah, and we saw Hawken in the 99 half a second faster than Levesque the last time round, and it's just so fast and furious here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park as we go around Moss Corner, which is really 2 short corners kind of joined together. And in fact, Sir Stirling Moss was actually involved in the original design of this Canadian Tire Motorsport Park circuit. And he actually said when he was originally shown the original drawings, it was just 1 hairpin, and he said it would be better if we have 2 small corners and a better challenge for the driver. And obviously his influence helped because Sir Stirling Moss actually won the first ever race here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park in 1961 in the Players 200.
And an update for you Ottawa Senator fans out there, Craig Anderson is back in the 29th position, up 1 position from the start of the grid. Just to give you an update on one of our special guests in the series.
Yep, and that's all the way back there, 25th position, just 17 seconds off the outright leader. So if you make any mistake at all, you are going to drop right to the bottom of the field. I think that's what's going to be so critical over this entire series, Brian, is that if you can minimize the mistake, sure, you might not go there and out there and win races, but one mistake, that could be the difference of winning a prize or not.
Yeah, I think if someone could finish possibly top 5, doesn't necessarily have to win. I think if you consistently run 5th place, you have a very good chance at this championship because guys are gonna have issues, different tracks, different styles. But if you can just run in that 5th position at every track, you'll be right there at the end of this thing.
And look at this little gaggle of cars, these top four all sitting in the draft with one another. And you know what here? 45 minutes is no problem at all for these 718 GT4 Club Sports, because this is the MR edition, which is made for GT4 racing. If you're buying one of these from your local Porsche dealer, in the UK at least, it would be another £30,000 to go for the Manthey Racing Pack. However, that Manthey Racing Pack does give you a much larger fuel tank. And actually, these cars can run for nearly 90 minutes on a tank of fuel, one of the longest anywhere on iRacing. So that's quite cool. But fuel is not going to be a problem for this 45 minutes, but tyres might do. And Levesque, with being the driver at the front, he's the man who's having to do the hard work.
Yeah, and as we see, they are battling throughout this field as we see a close pack of 6 cars here with Morad, Bisson, Malkov, Carey, Bordeaux, and Anderson here, all just battling it out here for the 21st position. And and we see a car get into the grass, but does a great job of settling the car back down.
That was a fantastic save from the 24 of Christopher Bison. Got onto the grass and was able to gather it up without contacting with any of his fellow competitors. Big respect to that man there. Very, very impressive indeed. Now, we have seen, of course, this car is one of the newer cars to the iRacing service, and we've seen in full effect today the damage model that the iRacing developers have worked so hard on to really accurately simulate not only the way the damage looks, but the effect it has on the drive of the vehicle. Of course, the body parts in the real-life version of this 718 GT4, in fact, this is the first ever production car to feature body parts made of a natural fibre composite material, which is much friendlier to our planet Earth.
And as we see here, Hawken is right there. I think he's getting closer and closer. I might have actually fallen off a little bit now that I'm looking at timing, but he's inching his way up there in some of these turns. And, you know, he's fine with running there probably for now, but eventually he's going to want that top spot. So if Levesque pushes off at all, I could see Hawken sticking a nose in there and trying to get that top position.
Yeah, he's certainly making it difficult for him. And I think as we see the 41, oh dear, that's Craig Anderson, our Ottawa Senators NHL goalie. He has had a little bit of an off coming into turn 1. You see the rear end of the car just come round there. All the electronic systems trying to save it for him, but no such luck, unfortunately, for Craig Anderson in the 41. In fact, you see NHL players doing lots of spins and tricks on their ice skates. That was a good demonstration of it there in his Cayman GT4.
Yeah, and goalies are one of the most athletic parts on the ice, I feel, with being able to move the way they are. So that not really what you want to translate here.
Look at Levesque. Sorry, Brian, my apologies to cut over. Levesque goes very wide there at Moss Corner, and that we'll just get a replay of that thanks to our producer Marco. So let's. We're now back with our leaders in live time. So that's Levesque in the 144 back to third. Sorry to cut you off there, Brian.
Oh, you were fine. That is definitely something that needs to be said.
So this changes the complexion of the race completely, because look out the front. Hawken in the 99, that red car just at the front of shot there. He could escape here because the 12th of Gobel, he's going to have to worry about the 144 of Levesque. So if Levesque wants to win this race from pole, he's going to have to get a move on after that mistake coming into Moss Corner.
These cars are all very tight right now, and it's just some incredible racing we've seen so far, and I can't wait to see how this continues.
Really tight move there from the 00 of Lien, putting it up the inside at Moss Corner. And I have to say, that 00 car looks absolutely fantastic. Big props to whoever designed that livery with gold wheels as well. And I have to say, the street version of the 718 Cayman is in red with gold wheels. I have to say, looks spectacular. And I must be honest, I've lost many an hour on the online configurator putting together my dream combination. Is that a hobby of yours, Brian, to go on the online configurators, or is it just me who's the anorak?
I think that one's just a little bit of you. I'm not sure many deal with the online configurations of it. Most just hop in and enjoy the racing.
So we're looking at Andrew Waring in the 336, a very regular attendee in sim racing. And oh goodness me, as he just spins coming out there around Moss Corner. I tell you what, it's all been happening at Moss Corner. There is the 336 of Andrew Waring, who won the Racing Edge race at Sebring on Tuesday night. Let's have a look to see. We're back with our leaders again, but of course at Moss Corner, that's a very popular site for spectating in the real world. Well, I tell you what, it's been a great site for spectating for us today.
Yeah, the great racing we've seen, along with some of these close incidents that we've had, just shows the amazing drivers that we have in this series. All from Canada, of course, except for Craig Anderson, the one special guest. But these guys are just battling their hearts out to get this grand prize, and they've been able to keep this car under them. And the ones that haven't, we've seen some great saves also. So it's just a lot of fun to see these Porsches on track.
It certainly is, and I have to say, Brian, I don't like to wish the series away. Oh, as the 12 of Goebel gets a little bit loose there, coming out of turn one again, very easy to do. The 144 of Levesque, there's no way through there, so he'll just have to stay patient and try and run him down. But yes, looking at the tracks we're going to go to, we're just in the dream tracks of North America here at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. 2 weeks' time, we go to Watkins Glen, then Lime Rock Park, and then finishing at the Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal. I cannot wait to see these drivers on those circuits as we head round Moss Corner. And I have to say, what do you think, Brian? It looks to me like the 12 of Goebel might be holding Levesque up here.
Yeah, I think Levesque wants to get back up there. Oh, and we see a car around there. That is the 11 there of Chris Jackson having some issues as we see him in the grass now. I'm not quite sure what happened there, as we'll get a replay here.
So let's get a look at that. He's heading round the turn 4, coming down and onto the brakes into Moss. Of course, the ABS will be biting away, and he just spins in front of the 00 car there, but able to avoid any more contact. So well done from all concerned there. Now, I just noticed on that car that's just gone off, it's got the Simability logo on that car, because Simability is actually an amazing company that produce basically sim equipment for people who have a particular disability. So you see it also there on the 121 car as well. So if you are handicapped or impaired in any way, give Simability a call, because they might be able to create a sim setup that allows you to get on the track.
And we see another car around here. That's Evan Lean in the 00. I think he's just going to end up taking that on a tow there. Seen a lot of cars just around today. It's very easy to get on that gas or turn that wheel just a little bit too much on exit, and that can easily bring that back end around, and that's how we see some of these cars just losing it.
Good move there from Levesque in the 144 again into Moss Corner, where it's all been happening today and has made it happen. Now look at Dam in the 93, tries to make it squeeze, and nearly does it. Now, round here, coming into turn 8, you can try the outside line there. I remember one of our drivers in the Canadian E-Racing Challenge did that successfully in a GT3 car, and we asked him after the race, how did you do that? And he said, oh, I learnt that racing Nissan Micras around here.
And we see Hawken is actually pulling out a large gap here, over 2 seconds now. So and we saw Levesque actually got around to the second place again here. So Levesque is going to try and chase down Hawken, but that might be a very large gap to try to get back in. I don't think he's going to be in the draft at any point. So Hawken at this point, if he can just run clean laps, may have a chance to pull out even further.
Well, also for Levesque as well, and Hawken, it's going to come to traffic. We're already coming across a couple of our lapped cars, but you know, we're looking as you see on the top right hand side of your screen here is our SDK track map. Now you'll see those that obviously just 1 or 2 lap cars they had to worry about because they've got nice clean air in front of them. But you'd be surprised, just a couple of incidents, and they might have that to worry about. As we see a replay here, what's going on here? That's the 7 of Daniel Morad, who just turns across the 432 of Eric Bourdais. It's been an eventful day for Daniel Morad.
Yeah, and that's one of those things where you could maybe underestimate the track a little, or just like I said, make those little mistakes and things can happen. So throughout the day, it's very easy to get caught up in different incidents, especially once the first one happens also, because after your first incident, from that point, you're just kind of out of your zone. You're not really in that comfortable spot that you feel like you should be, and that can cause you to make more mistakes or get caught up in someone else's.
Yeah, you're spot on there. It's so easy after a mistake, as you say, to overdrive the car, and actually that is really important for this 718 GT4 Porsche because it's a car that I've found is a car that really likes to be driven smoothly. It's not a car to really wrestle with. It's a finesse car. It's a lovely mid-engined layout, rear-wheel drive, of course, and just has lovely balance. But of course, has less power than say a GT3 car. So really, you've got to use its nimble chassis to keep the corner speed up, and if you're overdriving, that you're always going to make mistakes. So this will be interesting to see. You'll see on the bottom of your screen here the gap progression between Hawken and Levesque. So Hawken's been putting in the time in the last 4 or 5 laps, but just on lap 13 on the previous lap, just under 1/10 of a second gain back from Levesque. So we'll see when they come over the line how that's coming. But we'll look on our timing screen on the left-hand side. It's up to 1.8 seconds. So 99 of Hawken, he's taking control of this race after that mistake from Levesque.
Yeah, but Levesque is closing back in. As we talked about last time, it was a 2.2-second gap between them. So Levesque has got that down to about a 2-second gap now. So as these laps progress, Levesque's just got to be careful not to over push that car like we talked about. He's got to settle in, run his laps that he knows he can run, and he'll slowly take off that time on that lead.
So we're a little bit further down here now. We're on board with the number 5 of Giuliano Romagnolo, who was involved in a very controversial incident at Sebring on Tuesday night in the Racing Edge series, where he was punted off by Nicolas Varone, the British Formula 3 driver. So we're on board with him now, and you'll see there, if you're a Porsche owner, you'll recognise the gear shifter on board there. Now that is exactly the same gear shifter, the PDK gear shifter that you would see on any road version of any Porsche, really. So it does run a 6-speed PDK gearbox in this car. And the thing I like about this 718 GT4 is that this race car was developed and actually sold just before the road version of it came up. And I must say, it's very, very cool. My local track here in Scotland at Knockhill, that was where they did the UK press launch for the street version of this car.
And we see the 5 there driving it in very hard, trying to get that position. These guys are battling all the way throughout here. Like we said, the rewards, there are rewards for all the way down through 30th in these series. So no matter where you finish, you're going to get a reward from Porsche. And again, thank you to them for sponsoring this. But we all know that grand prize and what it is. So getting every position, just that extra point towards that end goal, as we see there are battles throughout the entire field. We saw a battle for 3rd, for 9th, for 7th, everywhere. These guys are right up against each other. They're running about the same times, so it comes down to just not making that little mistake.
You say racecraft is just going to be so critical throughout this series. Now, I want to get a quick look at the number 5 of Romagnolo, and the front hood of that car is now. Do you think? Oh dear, we're going to get a bit of a closer look at it. Now, is that a moose on the front of that car? Has the moose just got loose there? It looks like a moose or maybe a cow. I'm not sure. As Romagnolo's had a disaster here at Moss Corner again. He's got stuck there behind the barrier, and he's got to be able to get going. So we'll get a little replay of that. So there's the 5 of Romagnolo in the white and red car. I think that maybe is a moose on the front of that car, and he just gets a little bit loose, does he? Oh no, he gets a big help from the car behind. What a pity. That wasn't really his fault there.
I think he got a little loose and possibly tried to slow down, maybe taking a different line from getting loose, and that other car was just coming in there hot and thinking he was going to hit his line and just instead hit him. So it's just one of those things where I think it's a racing deal where one car was a little bit slow and the other car just didn't anticipate it enough.
Yeah, and of course that that car, that corner, sorry, Moss Corner, turn 5 and turn 6. It was specifically designed all the way back in the late 50s to kind of concertina the cars up together and to give overtaking opportunities and more challenge for the driver, because of course you come over the top of the hill here at turn 4. This is a great look, and then you've got to get hard on the brakes as
and we see another car go off there.
That's the 91. That was the 91. That's the car.
That's Jake Thompson, who is off into the sand trap.
Yeah, that's the 91.
Not quite sure what happened there.
It's the 91 that gave Romagnolo a little bit of a help there. I tell you what, Brian, we could just keep the camera on Moss Corner and we'd have some incredible entertainment. Oh, just loses the rear, coming round there into Moss, perhaps just maybe lifted off the throttle that little bit too aggressively, and the rear end came round.
Yeah, I think he just was trying again with one of those things where it was pushing possibly a little bit too hard there and just made a simple little mistake. And we now see the 93 working on the 12 here.
And that's the thing here at Motorsport, or Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, as I should say, is that it's quite an old school circuit and the walls are close. There is a good reason why the IndyCar Championship does not come here, because it would just be simply too dangerous. But perfectly good for GT racing, where you've got the roof over your head. So this is, that is one of the trickiest sections. And actually, Jackie Stewart, who won a couple of Canadian Grand Prix here, said that it really, really was one of the trickiest sections of track anywhere in the world on the braking zone into Moss Corner.
Yeah, this track is a lot of fun for so many people that it just, but can also be very tricky in some of the intricate parts. Like you said, Moss Corner is one of them. So it's one of those things where you do have to be careful on how you push this car and what you do around others.
Oh, huge moment there for the 92 of Alex De Silva, and just about hangs on to it, and hopefully going to get away as he takes a tow back to pit lane. So if you do see the car disappear, that means they have taken what's called the iRacing tow, where they will be virtually towed back to pit lane, where they can take their fast repair and get back out on track again. But that will be the hope of a good bag of points finished for them. So we watch the 99 of Hawken, who's holding that gap very nicely at just 2.7 seconds ahead of Levesque. So it's that gap is not coming down. He is driving really impressively, and of course, because the pace was so close between these two drivers, it's just not moving right now.
Yeah,
it's Levesque. Sorry again, Brian. I've cut you off again. It's Moss Corner again. Levesque went wide. It was exactly the same mistake that he made when he lost the lead. So let us ride on board with him here in the 144 718 GT4. So he comes round there of turn 4, hard on the brakes, just get that little bump and has to run it wide. Big oversteer, catches it well and back onto track again. But oh, what a shame for the 144 of Levesque. Don't forget, he was our pole position sitter and he's now back in 4th position.
Yeah, we talked before about consistency throughout the season, but that's also just at this race alone. It's either that or because you have to try to keep your position and not push it too hard. But if you're just trying to run consistent laps and you make one little mistake like that with how close they're running, you easily lose a position.
Yeah, the 93 of Mike Dam there, very, very clever for the Dam Motorsports Orange team. I like that team name, that's cool. Coming through turn 1 there, that's a big commitment corner, very, very fast right-hander, and he saw Levesque coming through on the inside and he gave him good room and just tucked in behind him. That is how you're clever. When a car like this, where the draft is so important and where momentum is so important, if there's a faster driver that makes a strong move, it's always a good idea to leave a little bit of safe room.
And we saw another car push a little bit wide there. But yeah, the racing is just so close here that it's just amazing to see these drivers doing this. And it's throughout iRacing together. Just the intense, tight racing you see through any series is just such a huge, amazing thing.
So if we look at the number 7 and the number 5, we've got our guest driver Daniel Morad and his teammate Romagnolo, both from the Racing Edge team. Now we think it might be a moose or a goat on the bonnet of the hood of the 5 car. Now the 7 car of Daniel Morad has what I think looks like, is that a Transformer logo, Brian? I'm not sure. It looks quite like it.
I'm not quite sure what that is, but I do believe that is a goat, not a moose.
It's a goat. Okay, my apologies, viewers. I thought being Canadian, it would maybe be a moose.
Yeah, from what I can tell, I think it is a goat. But yeah, some of the liveries we've seen on these things are pretty amazing. As we see there, 00 looks very good also. So the time that people put in is Craig Anderson is off into the grass again and having some issues.
Yeah, it's just, I have to say, I haven't watched it race in such a long time where one corner has just focused all of the action. You can really see why, well, it was clearly good advice from Sir Stirling Moss when he was consulting when this track was built, well, over 60 years ago now. Slavek looks up the inside at Moss corner. Oh, big contact! Big contact there with the number 12 car. That's Brody Goebel. But he makes it through, but that required a little bit of trading paint there to get through at Moss Corner.
Yeah, they're pushing hard at this point. We're getting to that 30-minute mark with 15 minutes lap. This is the time to go. This is the time where you want to make those positions. You want to pull away. You want to get as big of a gap as you can. Hawken is a little bit out of reach right now with a 5-second gap back, so these guys are going to push as hard as they can, trying to make up as much time, because you never know if Hawken could make a mistake. And if he does, they want to be right there to capitalize.
They really do, yeah. And with more of these drivers having to come in to pit lane to take their fast repair and get their Porsche 718 GT4 back to full fighting fitness, that's of course going to make the traffic a little bit easier. So it'll be interesting to see where our leaders are in relation to lapped traffic as we head through Moss Corner. Oh, the 93 of Dam very late on the brakes there, but that was very, very good precision flying there. Very, very close. Formation flying, that was the word I'm looking for. But yeah, looking at our track map on the top right hand side of your screen, still okay, still plenty of clear track, and of course with the field on such a consistent pace, traffic shouldn't be much of a problem.
Yeah, he's got some clean laps to go right now, so he's just got to sit there, stay comfortable, and just run consistent like we talked about. He's got that over 5-second gap, so he doesn't have to push his hardest right now either. He can just keep the car under him right now, stay where he is, and he'll be perfectly fine. He could even give up some of that time. We've seen it as a strategy before.
Yep, of course, and of course this is round 1 of 4. So as you say, better to just keep it steady, keep it consistent, but that's exactly what the 99 of Hawken is doing. He's really opening up the taps now, over 5 seconds of gap. Absolutely fantastic. Now, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park has been a happy hunting ground in the real world for this Porsche 718 GT4, because in the GT4 America, previously known as the Pirelli World Challenge, when that series came here to Canadian Tire Motorsport Park last year in 2019, the GT4 came in won in both the Sprint and the Sprint X classes, so it clearly knows how to set up very well for this particular circuit.
Yeah, and we see a battle here for 7th between Gagnon Renaud and Ellis here, pushing right up. And we see more cars just out in front of them. So these guys are not giving up at all. They are continuing to fight. And we see there's still 22 cars right now that are really they're under a minute from the leader. And so these guys, they don't want to go let lap down either, because you want to say that you finished on that lead lap. You don't want to be that person to go that lap down. So they're all going to be just continuing to push hard. And I'm sure we're not done seeing some incidents here.
No, I think you're absolutely right there, Brian. I think there's, as you say, there's so much at stake that when you thinking about going for that move, you're just going to get that little bit of that instinct decision to just dive in and having a go for it. I have to say, this is in this particular car. Of course, a GT4 specification car is designed to be a cost-effective alternative to a GT3 car, and therefore doesn't quite have the same amount of aerodynamic generated grip, so gets most of its grip mechanically. Now, through the first few fast-flowing corners here at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, downforce is really, really important. So for these drivers, they've got to be really, really smooth with their steering inputs and really carry that momentum. As we see the 93 of Dam in that orange car just move up the inside here. Can he make it stick into turn 8, into the S's? He does. Good move indeed, and good discipline as well from the number 12 car of Goebel, who's clearly thinking about the bigger picture. As I say that, he has a look around the outside coming into the final corner of whites. I'm sure that white will be the colour of his of his skin tone right now as he's panicking. He'll be white knuckle riding coming around there with this brilliant battle.
Yeah, you'll often see that where someone makes that really good move and pass, but then right away the car that just got passed has that opportunity to make that pass right back coming out of a next turn. That's something that's incredible to see with road racing, because you just see that a fight is never over once a pass is made, because that person behind is going to get a run most likely out of the next turn.
And look who we have here, the number 121 of Kloosterman in that green and black Simability car. All that battling between the 12 of Goebel and the 93 of Dam has allowed him to catch up, and he's right there in the draft train now, is the 121 of Kloosterman. So he's right there. We're riding on board with him as we head over 100 miles an hour with ease. Of course, no problem at all with this powerful 3.8 litre naturally aspirated engine. And I have to say, Brian, I know you're a huge fan of NASCAR, as I am too. And of course, there they have big naturally aspirated V8s. I have to say, it is so refreshing to hear a naturally aspirated race car, because they are becoming rarer now. And this car, it's old school in some way, but oh, what a beautiful noise it makes. So typically Porsche.
Yeah, and we got to thank iRacing for being able to get these sounds into iRacing, because they've continued to work hard and get this thing to sound as best as possible. And people love the new sounds that have come into the game, and we just, again, can't thank them enough, along with all of the manufacturers for working with iRacing. So Porsche for allowing the ability for iRacing to come and scan these cars and get those, everything about it, the sound, the look, everything that we have.
Yes, you're absolutely right. That transparency is really important, because iRacing, to my knowledge, are one of the very few, if not the only, platforms that actually does use laser scan technology to ensure the realism. As we look at the 00 car and the 15 car fighting there very fiercely. But yes, you're right. And of course, Porsche is one of the best represented brands on iRacing. You have this 718 GT4, you have the 911 GT3 Cup car, you have the 911 RSR Le Mans car, or GTE or GTLM car, and also, I have to say, my favourite, the 919 hybrid, which I have to say, when you come out of one of those slow chicanes at Le Mans and just hit the boost button, oh, what a feeling.
Yeah, and again, this battle right now is just pushing so hard here between all of them. We got 4 cars fighting for 22nd place, and you could lay a blanket over them, basically. They are so tight together, and even with some of the damage some of them have, you saw some crinkles on the sides and on the back, that they are still pushing these cars to the absolute brink of losing it. So and we see a car go around up there.
The 9 of Corey Whiteman in the Pfaff car. Of course, Pfaff, they're very famous for their Canadian plaid, tartan plaid paint scheme there that you saw. And of course, at the 2020 Rolex 24 at Daytona, which I was lucky enough to attend, they actually had matching overalls. So they had their sparkle race suits in full lumberjack simulation mode, which was very, very cool to see as they climbed into their Porsche 911 GT3R.
Yeah, and I think he's had a very eventful day there in that Pfaff car, so we'll end up seeing where he ends up finishing out here as we can go on board here with Gagnon Renard as he is chasing down Alex Ellis. He's been right there for a very long time, just waiting to make that pass.
And this is, we've all been here, you're sitting behind the wheel, you're just tucked in the draft and you're going, come on, just inching closer, ever closer as he goes up to top gear just briefly and then back to fifth gear as well, and then down to fourth, and he's holding a nice tight line there and he's building on Ellis. He's right on the back bumper there, right on the gearbox of Ellis, the car in front, but Ellis gets a good exit out of whites and carries that all the way through into turn one.
Yeah, and when you're right there, you have to anticipate when the person in front of you is going to brake, because otherwise you're going to run into the back of them, and that can cause you some damage along with wreck them, and you don't want that because you want to pass the person clean. You want to get that spot fair, as we see Klusterman and Gobble going at it here. So, but yeah, you just have to be very careful and anticipate the moves that are happening in front of you so that you can race clean and along with not take any damage.
Absolutely, and we've seen that many times with cars just collecting with each other, particularly at Moss Corner. I have to say, Brian, this is an excellent battle between the 12 of Goebel and the 121 of Klusterman, who's just sort of crept his way up into this battle. And as we said, the Klusterman in the 121 Simability car. Check it out, Simability. Check out their website and see what they can do. They can, you can have CAN controls for throttle and brake. All the kind of things you could adapt the real road car, they can get for your sims. So if you know someone who wants to get into sim racing but perhaps a little bit handicapped or impaired, give Simability a shout.
Yeah, and as we've seen, these guys have been very patient today, actually showing off the patience that they've had, and it's not something you normally see on iRacing, so it makes the racing very fun to watch as they are nose to tail almost everywhere on the field. And we see that Hawkins' lead to Levesque has kind of slowed down a little bit as Levesque is catching up. It might be Hawkins just being more careful with the cars. There's 5 minutes left in this race, no need to push it hard. So it could be that he's just trying to keep that car on track and just bring it home.
So Brian, we're coming into the closing stages of round 1 of 4 here in the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada. Before we come towards the checkered flag, who's been your driver of the day so far?
Well, I gotta say that it's Brandon Hawken. Being able to be patient there when he was in second and then get that lead off of a mistake by Levesque and then be able to pull away the way he has. He's managed this race greatly, being able to just be patient, just run smart, and keep the car on track.
I shouldn't have let you go first, should I? Because I've been obviously very impressed with Hawken. Once he got out front, he did not relinquish it, and in fact grew that gap. I have to say, I'm going to go for the 121 of Klusterman because he really, as you said, we talk about that patience so much. He could see the battling going on in front of him and just bit by bit over the race was able to claw his way up to that front group, and he's going to get, hopefully, all being well, a really good bag of points in his Never Quit Racing Simability entry.
Yeah, and going with that, I want to talk about some of our biggest movers here. Brian Carey is up 11 positions. Oh, he might have had an issue, actually, as I see him going down the positions here. So I might have jinxed it a little bit there. But then we have Craig Anderson is up 4, which is another big name there. Sam Fellows is up 15. So a lot of big positions here gained. Bisson up 14, Malkov 13. So a lot of guys just working hard to gain those positions.
Yeah, Sam Fellows, as we see on screen, he's got a nice, it's almost like a Scottish themed car he's got on there, the blue and white. and you'll see that on the front hood of that Porsche 718, he's got pilotti, which I think is the same pilotti that make very expensive and very beautiful fashionable driving shoes.
Yeah, and again, as we talked about it, here's another great battle back here of 5 cars, nose to tail, basically just pushing it for all it's worth in these closing laps that any of them make a mistake and they're giving up a ton of positions because of how close they are. So the battles we've seen from this Porsche series has been incredible, and I can't wait to see what happens in the next 3 rounds of the series.
It's going to be fantastic, and we've got 3 brilliant tracks to go to as well. And I think, as you've hinted to, Brian, you know, normally a race here on iRacing between GT4 cars would normally be would be pretty attritional, shall we say, with lots of crashes and smashes and all sorts. But the quality, I think it's very clear that the quality in this field is incredibly high, and of course, all 30 of our qualifying drivers in the field have earned the right to be here on outright pace. It's no selection committee. The 30 fastest drivers got the nod.
Yeah, they put in the time and the work to get here, and like we said before, it was all of the times together, so it wasn't just running well at one track or anything like that. So the times that they have shown is that they are quick, and throughout the series, that means anyone at any track could be the racer of that day to get that win. So, but we talked about also before is making sure you're just consistent throughout there, because you may be pushing for a win and end up taking yourself out, and then that ruins your chance at winning the series.
Yep, and of course, I think I've just got a sneaky suspicion that as we go to Circuit Gilles Villeneuve in Montreal for the final round, of course, that's a street circuit with no runoff at all. So any slight mistake and you're in the wall, and your race is likely to be all but over. Now, here in Scotland, Brian, there is a wine shop called Villeneuve Wines that opened up in the 1980s, and I asked him, I said, why is it called Villeneuve Wines? Because the owner's name is not Villeneuve. He says, well, it's a wine shop, so we needed a French-sounding name, and we were huge Ferrari and Gilles Villeneuve fans, so we called it Villeneuve Wines.
That is a very interesting fact to find out there. We are coming up on time here as Brandon Hawken has stretched his lead over Levesque, and Hawken has just driven a great race to be able to be out this far and just be able to finish this thing and bring home that win.
Here comes the checkered flag then. Your winner of round 1 of the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge will be the number 99 of Brandon Hawken. Congratulations to him, with Levesque coming in second in the 144 and Dam in the 93 closing out the podium. What a race that was, as we see Ellis just able to hang off and to hold 7th position from Gagnon Renault. Coming through here, through the S's, there's just one last chance to make that one final move as we see our drivers come through. Klosterman taking 5th in the 1-2-1 as well. What a contest, and I tell you what, Brian, if this is any indication of what we can see for the rest of this event, it's going to be a great few weeks.
Yeah, and we see that not everyone has crossed that line yet, still battling it out here for those final positions between Bourdois, Hibbs, and Whiteman here. They want this position right now. They want to get that extra points to kind of salvage a little bit of their day that they can.
Oh, that was one of the Straight Pipes YouTube guys who just going off there, just trying to hang on, and Hibbs in the 15 car that we're looking back to now just had that last attempt as they head over the line, but not quite good enough. And as you say, Whiteman in the number 9 who got taken out early, he's got to be disappointed because he had top 5 and certainly top 10 pace. As there's our winner, the number 99. Fantastic run from him, from Brandon Hawken. So here are your results then. Brian, take us through them.
So finishing in the first position is Brandon Hawken. In second, we have William Levesque. Third is Mike Dam. Fourth is Brody Gobble. Fifth is Tony Kloosterman. Sixth is Mac Cornice. Seventh, Alex Ellis. 8th is Ian Gagnon Renaud. 9th is Oliver Bedard. 10th is Stephen Workup. 11th, Giovanni Romano. 12th is James Walker. 13th is Sam Fellows. 14th, Jordan Dion Gilbert. 15th is Chris Jackson. 16th, Christopher Bisson. 17th is Dmitry Malkov. 18th, Brian Carey. And then we have in the, sorry about that, 19th position, Nathan Bartley. 20th is Jake Thompson. 21st is Evan Lean. 22nd, Eric Bourdois. 23rd, Richard Hibbs. 24th, Corey Whiteman. 25th, James David. 26th is Craig Anderson, not quite getting the day that I'm sure he was hoping for. 27th is Alex Da Silva. 28th, Chris Trickett. And then finishing out our runners here, we have 29th is Jacob Warble. 30th is Yuri Tereshin. 31st, Giuliano Magliano. 32nd, Daniel Morad. 33rd, Andrew Waring. 34th, Marc-Andre Seguin. 35th, Jack Dumage. And 36th is Nelson Mason.
Goodness me, we can give you a rest now, Brian. That's a lot of drivers to read out in one go. So there you have it then, folks. What a great night's racing here in the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada. Don't go away here on the Apex Racing TV channel and the iRacing Esports Network. We will hopefully hear from a couple of our drivers very soon. But before we do, Brian, we're off to Watkins Glen at the same time in 2 weeks' time. To me, Watkins Glen is kind of like if racetracks had cousins, I would say that Watkins Glen would be Canadian Tire Motorsports Park's American cousin.
Yeah, Watkins Glen is a great track, and we're lucky to have it here in America because you can go there with almost any car and have just a ton of fun because the Watkins Glen is just so revered everywhere, and you have the Cup route, which I see a lot more in NASCAR, and then you also have that inner loop where you see all the IMSA cars going in the IndyCar, and it's just so fun to see those cars there and running that inner loop because it's such a while it's a fun track, it can be tricky. It's very fast, and you have to make sure you're slowed down for those corners. And a lot of times you'll see someone just carry too much speed, especially into the first turn, and hit someone or the bus stop, and that's just those are two areas where it's very easy to just misjudge it just slightly and take someone out.
Yep, it's going to provide some great racing. Now, I can see in our interview room, we have our round one winner, Brandon Hawkins. So let's see if we can have a little chat with him. Brandon Hawkins, you are the round one winner of the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada. How does it feel, sir?
Hey, Peter. Hey, guys. Man, yeah, it feels really good. To get the first one in the bucket, that's really cool. It was a really good race. William was really fast, so I was worried about him pretty much the whole race. But yeah, I just kind of tried to pace myself there and be as consistent as I could. And yeah, it was a really good race.
Yeah, perfect start. And of course, here we were just so impressed pre-race, just how close the times were in practice and qualifying. But we saw, as you say, we saw William Levesque just 0.2 of a second faster. Coming into the race, what was it like when you came into Moss Corner and you saw him go a little bit wide? Did you think, oh, here we go, we've got a chance now?
Oh, definitely, yeah. Once I saw his left rear get in the grass there, I was like, oh man, here's my chance. Because yeah, like it would have been extremely hard to pass him had that not happened. So yeah, that was I just tried to stay right on him, and yeah, got lucky there. But yeah, would have been a really good battle nonetheless. And yeah, just really good racing from all of them. Really good job.
Now, to qualify for this series, you're in a very exclusive bunch. You know, the 30 fastest sim racers in Canada who have qualified for the privilege to take part in this event. Now, I was looking earlier on that the qualifying format, that you had to set a time at each of our 4 circuits, and then they were added together. What were your favourites and least favourites of the qualifying circuits, and why?
Well, yeah, definitely my most favorite's Mosport. It's my home track, and it just really suits my driving style. So I was happy to see that was the first race, and then Watkins Glen's really nice too. I really enjoy Watkins Glen just because I don't know, like probably just because I've done a lot more laps on like tracks like Mosport and Watkins Glen than some other circuits. But yeah, I really like the Glen, and we didn't have Mid Ohio in the time trial, but I'm really looking forward to that. Montreal was definitely the most difficult with the slowdown penalties for taking too much curb, and it's a lot more technical as well. So yeah, that was definitely the hardest. But yeah, we got Mosport, which is nice, and yeah, looking forward to the Glen. So yeah, it should be good.
Yeah, as are we here in the commentary box. And it's funny the point you make about Montreal. Those pesky iRacing stewards, they don't miss a thing when you go over the curbs. Now, before we let you go, you're live on the iRacing Esports Network and on Porsche Canada's Facebook page. Who have you got? Anyone you want to give a shout out to?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, of course. Got to thank Apex V2R and Porsche Canada for like all they do to organize this event. All the admins, you guys for the broadcast at Apex TV. It's just just a really great event, and I'm super thankful to be a part of it. Oh,
Well,
also,
oh, sorry.
forgot to mention my teammates at Movano Racing. I think some of them might be watching, so hey.
Well, it was a pleasure to have you up here in the commentary box, and hopefully we'll see you again here in 2 weeks' time. Thanks for coming in to chat.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay, so we're that was Brandon Hawken there, joining us in the commentary box. I'm seeing if we've got William Levesque. It looks like we do. He is with my colleague Brian Delp.
William Levesque finishing in the second position. Congratulations on that finish there. What did you feel throughout that race? I know you took the pole, and then there might have been a few issues that happened there. What was going on with you throughout that race?
Well, first of all, cheers, guys. Yeah, well, turn five was really hard for me, even yesterday in the test race. Um, if you enter just a bit too fast and hit like just the wrong bump, the car would just end up like kind of in a dead zone situation with the ABS, and it would just go straight every time. So that happened twice in the race. But in the end, it wasn't too bad. I could make the places back, and I might have had a shot at Brandon for the win, but I think I would have needed a near perfect race because his pace was really, really good, and he didn't make any mistakes most of the race. So good job to him.
Now, second isn't anything to scoff at. It's definitely a great finish, and I'm sure you're going to try to keep that going. We have Watkins Glen next. How are you feeling about that in 2 weeks' time?
Definitely one of my most hated tracks, but I mean, we'll see. It's a little bit more technical than Motorsport, I think, because it's the full track. So we'll see how it goes. But I think the field should probably still be fairly close, and there's a lot of drafting there as well. So yeah, it should be interesting.
Is there anyone you want to give a shout out to while we're here live on the iRacing Esports Network and on Porsche Canada's Facebook page?
Yeah, my guys at NX Racing, as well as our sponsors, SimiCube and V Racing. And I'll also thank Marc-André and Apex V2R. And I'll do a shout out to the guys at SFTV, the French broadcast, whom I know well. So, yeah.
Well, that was William Levesque, and congratulations again on your second place finish. And as you move on to the next race.
All right, cheers, guys.
Thanks to William Levesque for coming in to chat to us. And I think completing the podium, we have the number 93 of Mike Dam here to join us in the commentary box. Mike Dam, an opening podium in round one of the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada. How was it from your seat there? It looked like a pretty hectic race from our position.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Yeah, really happy to be even the bottom side of the podium. That's more than I was aiming for. So, yeah, it's pretty hectic at the start. I was lucky enough to get I was actually surprised to get on the front row in qualifying. So, yeah, it was really tight at the beginning. Like, there was no time between us top guys. So, just tried to keep it clean and didn't want to rush anything. So, and that seemed to work.
Now, of course, Motorsport, I keep saying Motorsport, Canadian Tire Motorsport Park, to give it its up-to-date name, coming along the Mario Andretti straightaway, along that back straight. We can see a little bit from the commentary box, the drafting, but you'll be able to give us a much greater idea. How important is that draft here at the circuit?
Yeah, it's definitely 2 or 3 tenths for sure. And it is really important to stay with that lead group. If you're losing that draft or 1 to 2 seconds back, it's going to be tough. You got to really work the tire to get to maintain your pace. So yeah, if you're able to just kind of stay with that train, you can make a mistake here and there, and you'll be able to still manage that gap in front of you. So.
Of course, as we head off to Watkins Glen next time in 2 weeks' time, the draft will be equally as important there as well. You mentioned the tyre, of course, 45 minutes, a reasonable length of race. Did the tyre hang on all the way to the end?
To a certain extent, it kind of levels off after about halfway through the race, and it feels like the tires kind of feel the same. It's just that first transition between the first 5 laps and the rest of the race. Kind of really have some pretty darn good tires the first 5 laps, and you can really push it out of corners, push it into corners. But you really have to practice driving on these worn tires because it's a totally different beast. You got to really brake earlier, be way smoother, easy on exit. You can't just punch it. Like, it's totally different. So the tires did hold up, but you definitely have to really take it easy on the tires.
And last question, Mike. The Cayman GT4 718 Club Sport has quite a lot of driver aids like anti-lock brakes and traction control, electronic stability control, etc. But I know that some drivers like to adjust them and kind of turn it down a little bit. How do you run those driver aids? Do you have them on or off?
So yeah, you cannot adjust ABS. But I had traction control and stability control off the entire race, and that's the way it seemed to work for me. I like to be able to manually handle that, and it seemed to work okay.
That's the sign of a true pro speaking. I have to say I love the safety of it. Keeps me out the barriers from time to time. Mike, before we let you go, do you have anyone you'd like to give a shout out to live on the iRacing Esports network?
Yeah, just all these guys, and like they're really fast, they're really clean. It's awesome to drive, and just to you guys, Porsche, everybody, like, this is a really cool experience. I'm really enjoying it. So just thank you.
Oh, we're enjoying it just as much, I hope. Well, hopefully we'll see you up here again at Watkins Glen in 2 weeks' time. But thanks for coming up to chat to us, Mike.
Guys, take it easy.
So that was Mike Dam, our 3rd place finisher in this race. Time for some final thoughts. Brian, what did you think of that race?
I thought that race was exactly what we thought it was going to be. We had so many fast drivers in this field that their times were just so close to each other. We saw nose-to-tail battling throughout the entire field. All the way back in the 20s, you saw guys just battling it out to get those crucial points as you move forward in this series. And we saw some great battling up front. Also, we saw Gobble and Klusterman, and they were battling it out for a while along with Mike Dam. Levesque and Hawken going at it at the beginning of the race, and just throughout the entire field you saw guys just wanting to keep it clean but run as hard as they can to make up as many positions as possible.
It had everything, and you know what, Brian? I think we're going to be treated to exactly the same again at Watkins Glen in a fortnight's time, and I personally cannot wait. That's about all we've got time for here in the Porsche Esports Sprint Challenge Canada. Thanks so much to Porsche Canada for putting together this series, a fantastic concept with 30 of Canada's fastest sim racers competing for big prizes. You can find out more information at www.porsche.ca. And as we talked about in the broadcast, go on there and have a play about on the online configurator and configure your dream Porsche on the site. And for a brand that has such a rich motorsport heritage with more Le Mans 24-hour wins than any other brand and more Sebring 12-hour wins than any other brand, it's brilliant to see Porsche branching out into the virtual world. Thanks so much to our wonderful producer in Rome, Marco Barbanera. And Brian, thank you to you for your company in the commentary box today. Thank you to you all for watching on the iRacing Esports Network and the Porsche Canada Facebook page. We will see you in 2 weeks' time at Watkins Glen. Thanks for watching.